All right. Hi, guys. Welcome to Catholic Answers More. I am Marie Dixon, the assistant producer and guest host for Psy for the next 10 minutes. We're here with Trent Horn and Layla Miller, authors of Made This Way. We are going to dive in for 2 hours with them today to talk about the book, but right now we're just going to get to know them for fun. So, my first question for you guys is, what was your motivation for the book personally?
Well, I think both of us want to be good parents. What parent doesn't want to be a good parent? And I've had a lot of parents come to me asking, what do I say to my kids about these moral issues that you talk about on Catholic Answers Live all the time? I say, well, it's tough to talk to them about it, but you have to be able to do that. I've researched them for a long time, and I wanted to write a book for a few years now explaining to parents, here's how you can explain these issues to your own children so they don't go astray. I mean, I've explained them to high school students, college students. But while thinking about the book, I realized, well, I don't have a lot of parenting experience. I lack the practical side. My 2 children are under the age of 4.
Right.
So I thought it would be good to approach someone who has practical experience in the realm of parenting and practical experience in the realm of defending these moral teachings from people who can be pretty vigorous in opposing them. And that naturally led me to one Layla Miller.
Yeah, I think it was a perfect dovetail of Trent's experience and his research and everything he's been doing for so long, and then my practical experience of having 8 kids, ages 27 down to 8, and having raised them almost in 2 different generations, really, because my older kids didn't have anything. Someone's timer.
Just a little
now
alarm.
I'm not going to be late for the show.
Right.
So we're all good.
Perfect.
He beat his timer. So back in, the early days of my parenting, half of these issues that we talk about in this book weren't even on the radar screen at all. So, and in those years I've had, and then I started to kind of teach the faith and do some blogging and things like that. But then I'd have parents come to me in stark terror about the culture and not knowing how to approach any of these issues. And so that was just always percolating. And then when Trent and I, got together on this, we thought this is probably something that needs to be written because we've got a lot of terrified parents out there who don't know how to tackle this.
And grandparents,
Absolutely.
aunts,
And
teachers,
teachers and
even just regular people say.
Yeah.
Some people who don't even have children have read this book and have said this really helped me understand what the church teaches. I mean, if you can explain anything to a child,
You can explain it to anyone.
Then people can get it. Yeah.
Well, I gave away the book in my Bible study this weekend. I have a group of ladies in San Diego, and the girl who won it doesn't have kids yet, but she said, I want it because be able to explain as simply as I would to a child to anyone
Yes.
what I believe.
Yes.
And I feel like in reading through some of the book, but I noticed that those explanations also it's a very kind and clear way of saying things. It's helpful to have that, even when you're talking to adults, to have that clear, simple, straightforward way of saying things. And it's a really good resource.
Yeah, I think what was helpful in the book, that both of us believe this, that we don't want to be obscure and flowery in our language or dance around the issue out of fear of offending people, which can lead to ambiguities, and that's a problem. But we also don't want to be blunt and offensive and trying to score points.
Right.
We're just fair, firm, and straightforward, which is basically how you should be with kids, fair and firm.
Right.
Exactly. And we also had talked about that we don't mind that this book is also a bit of a stealth catechesis for the adults as well.
Yeah.
We know very well that there have been a couple of decades of poor catechesis.
Yeah.
I was raised in the 70s and 80s, so my entire generation pretty much didn't learn the faith.
They're doing catch
well.
up now.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that's part of the terror of the
Right.
parents, is that I don't have the words, I don't know my own faith maybe well enough. I don't have the reasonable arguments for these issues that I should have. And therefore, we had the idea that, well, we're going to make sure that everybody can learn from this, and we're just keeping the parents or the adults one step ahead of the children.
Yeah.
So it's really for anyone's benefit.
Right.
That is one thing that's nice with the book. Some parents will read it because they are concerned about some issues and might flip to those chapters. But then other issues where they might even disagree with the church, they'll read those chapters and then be catechized and evangelized themselves. We're hoping with some of the readers.
Yeah. And these are really difficult conversations to have because, as I heard when you were recording with each other earlier, you actually meet people. These are real people, and you have to interact with them in a Catholic way and still be clear. And I think I've gotten so many calls over the last week from people saying that they've given the book to priests and to seminarians in formation. And it's really exciting to hear that, because I feel that it's the beginning of an era of much better catechesis than what we've had over the past few generations. So that's exciting. So let's do some fun get to know here. You're from Arizona.
Yes.
Or you live in Arizona now. Have you
Yes.
always lived in Arizona?
I have almost always lived in Arizona. I grew up in Tucson, Arizona, except for my very young years that I don't remember.
Okay.
But my growing up was in Tucson, Arizona. Went back east to college at Boston College, lived in Atlanta for a while, and then moved back to Phoenix with my husband.
Okay.
And
Did you guys know each other when you were living in Arizona also? Had you connected up?
Yeah, the first time we were aware of each other was when I had to make sure that the dingoes didn't carry away your baby
that's right.
in Australia.
That's right.
Well, I was chaperoning a World Youth Day trip in 2008.
Oh,
and
my
actually,
goodness.
I got to go on these trips for free. So I went in 2005, and I went on that trip, and I videotaped and photographed every day of it.
Wow.
Appreciate that.
And so
Yes.
parents who are wary of sending their high schoolers across the world appreciated seeing these daily updates. And so I was given a free trip for the next World Youth Day.
Wow.
And
Beautiful.
her daughter, Cecily, was in our group. And she was sometimes in my small group. I would have to keep track of people. And I count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Where's the seventh one? Where's Cecily?
Yeah.
And she'd jump up from behind. I'm
Oh my
here.
gosh.
She's like
She's-
4'11", I
She's
think.
this teeny little redhead, and
Oh
you
my
couldn't really
goodness.
see her.
Like this big.
Yeah.
But I had to, and just taking people around Sydney, these teenagers, I said to them, one of them just didn't listen to us and got lost and wandered off. I said, what would happen if you didn't find the group? And she said, I'd probably cry and then go to Starbucks. I'm like,
The
well,
honesty
it's
of
like,
a
well,
teenager.
I am glad that we're in a country where they speak English and they're nice. So.
And
But
where there's
that's-
Starbucks.
goodness.
and then we've reconnected later as I've done catechesis and apologetics.
That's
Right.
great.
Yeah, he went off and became a world-renowned apologist and, the greatest Catholic apologist in the universe. And
Yeah.
I
Didn't
just-
even have to pay
In
her
the
to say that.
universe.
yeah,
I love-
no, it's true. And I was like, wow, Trent's gone far.
Okay.
This is amazing.
Yeah.
I guess we don't have to ask you how it was working with him then. That's a pretty glowing report.
It was great. It was really incredible. Like
Well,
it was just
it was
an
fun.
honor.
It was fun to do the chapters because some people, when books are co-authored, it's just
Mm-hmm.
one guy writes one half, the other person writes the other half, or you alternate chapters. But each chapter is really a blend of our thoughts
Mm-hmm.
that we would take a chapter at a time and just send the words back and forth to each other
Mm-hmm.
to mesh them together. So it really forms a nice coherent whole that the voice, I would say that the book is in Layla's voice, but you can see me popping up here and there.
Yeah.
Especially
definitely.
especially in the footnotes, because that's my favorite place.
Thank goodness he does footnotes. I don't do footnotes. I'm no scholar that way, but I was. Let's be honest. At the end, I was like, Trent, I can't write this chapter. Can you please give me something, and then I'll work off of it, and I'll shape
Yeah.
it. And so, I mean, we would kind of when one would get fatigued.
Another-
On
right.
one topic or one,
Yeah.
late in the game or something,
You could help each
we'd
other
help
out.
each other. It was
Yeah.
wonderful.
It was good.
Yeah.
I think it is really valuable having the two different parental experiences, though, too. I mean, you have kids that are adults, you have very little kids, but both of you want a better future for all of your kids. And I think that is really exciting that you teamed up together and, put your parenting expertise as well as your apologetics expertise together.
What's nice is for a lot of the chapters, like for high school students, I mean, I don't have high school students of my own,
Mm-hmm.
which would make sense because most people think that I'm still in high school, if I dress like a kid sometimes. But I did have a lot of experience in youth ministry
Oh, okay.
in college, later in college, so speaking with teens. And
Mm-hmm.
so I did recall that in college ministry to help with a lot of the sections on the big kids. But as for the little kids, yeah, I'm just now approaching that threshold with my kids starting to ask the curious questions. And
Yeah.
I was desperately looking for the answers in our own book for some things I was dealing with. So I think
Yeah.
a lot of people will benefit from it.
I think so. I work with the youth in San Diego as well, and they are so just uninformed. They just don't know. We had the opportunity to have them at the Steubenville conference this year, and there was a talk about what does all of this gender fluidity mean and what is going on. And we left and they had a million questions about, well, what does the church say is actually right? And why is it right? And why is it good for us? And they just don't know. Nobody's ever told them before. And these are 15, 16, 17-year-old kids. But they're open to what is true.
Right.
And when I explained to them why marriage was the way that it was, they all looked at me and they said, yeah, that makes sense. But I still love my friends that are this way and this way and this way. And I'm like, and you absolutely should. Absolutely should. But I think I'm excited because they're going to get some copies of the book. And I feel that when parents aren't there to explain things, you know, maybe they can learn it for themselves too, because this resource is out there now. We're coming down to the end. What a favorite thing to do outside of all of this, outside of work, outside of apologetics, favorite hobbies, or with
Maybe watching or reading superhero comics or books, and sleeping, because I have a 1-year-old and a 3-year-old. Whenever I can find that, I'm happy.
Sleeping.
great.
That's good. I like that one. Yeah, we watch a lot of movies in my family, so I would say we do a lot of that. Yeah.
Well, thank you guys
Sure thing.
for a wonderful 15 minutes. And I'm going to hand you off to Christopher Check, our president, who's hosting today.
El Jefe.
Catholic Answers Live. Christopher Check, president of Catholic Answers, sitting in for Cy Kellett. Cy will be back in this seat tomorrow, so only one more day of putting up with me. But we have a great 2-hour program here with us in studio, our very own Staff Apollo Horn, and our very special guest all the way from Phoenix, Arizona, Layla Miller. Welcome, Layla.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
Welcome, Trent. We're glad you're here.
Always good to be here.
And we have here in the studio because they are co-authors of I'm holding it up for everybody in radio to see, our Facebook friends and YouTube, co-authors of one of our newest books, Made This Way. Mm-hmm. And so today, 888-318-7884, 888-318-7884, 888-31-TRUTH, we want to hear from parents having difficulty answering difficult moral questions from their children. Or perhaps you are a teacher and you have, whether it's a grade school child or a middle school child, you have, the world is, well, it's a difficult place, Nens. And so we get questions, parents get questions from their children, like the 9-year-old saying, Mommy, what's a transgender? That when I was 9, we were not asking our parents.
Might have been asking, where do babies come from? But now the variant is, where do babies come from if it's a daddy and a daddy?
Right, exactly. So we're taking questions today, 888-318-7884, 888-31-TRUTH, for Layla and for Trent, so that they can help you through these questions. Layla, first.
Yes.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Were your parents Eric Clapton fans?
Nah, that's always the question. And by the way, I like the unplugged version better.
It's spelled differently.
It is
Yes,
spelled
it is.
different. That would have helped my life if it had been spelled Layla, because people would know how to pronounce my name. But no, they weren't. Actually, my father is an Arab immigrant, and Layla, Leila, is an Arabic name.
Oh.
So it just so happened that everybody, also knows the
Very good.
Eric Clapton song.
Well, I'm sorry to be the 300th person to
No, it's all
ask you
good.
that question. Yeah, so, great song. Mother of 8,
Yes.
right? And ranging from 27?
27 down to 8.
To 8 years
And we
old.
have 7 grandchildren now as well. Our first 3 are married with children, and 5 of the 8 of our children are now adults.
Praise God. And you blog, or you did blog at Little Catholic Bubble.
Right?
But now we can find your more current stuff at
Yes, I-
laylamiller.net.
Yes.
All right,
Kind of
good.
shifted over there, and yeah.
And tell a little bit more about yourself. You have had a career doing some, this is not your first book, so you've been doing some speaking and writing for some time now.
Right, yes.
Sort of as a Catholic mom guru.
Yes.
How's that?
Sort of. Yes. So basically, yeah, stay-at-home mom for all these years. A couple of years ago, enough because I had been blogging and talked to a lot of Catholic moms and such, and teaching the faith in that way. Some of the moms started to ask me about, how do you raise, especially boys in this culture? And that's when I did my first self-published book, which now is with Holy Heroes, and that's Raising Chaste Catholic Men. And that was just self-published up until recently, the second edition, and is, again, Holy Heroes. But then I did another self-published book, which was kind of out of the blue, which was Primal Loss, The Now Adult Children of Divorce Speak. And that kind of blew things up, which was pretty amazing. And that's about the time when we started talking about maybe
That's right.
taking something to Catholic Answers and getting this all put together for parents, because again, parents need things today. They're pretty anxious out there.
So I guess, Trent, that answers the question. How did the inspiration for this book come around?
Well, so for at least a few years, I've been wanting to write a book like this because I engage these tough moral issues all the time on Catholic Answers Live, and people will email me saying, how do I explain this to my kids? And then I remember going to a mom's group with my wife, she was going to that, and some of the parents were talking to me saying, how do I explain this? So I saw there was the need, and I first thought, how would I write this book? But then I saw the obstacle in front of me that, well, I know these moral issues very well, but I don't have a lot of the practical parenting experience. I only have, 1-year-old and a 3-year-old. So right now, the only thing I'm dealing with is I have a 3-year-old biological male who identifies as a dinosaur. So I'm helping him to come to grips with that, with his sense of identity
That's in
and
the
sense of
book.
self.
Yeah, we
So-
deal with that.
Yes.
yeah. So Transosaurus Rex or whatnot. But I don't, haven't had elementary students, high school students. And so I was familiar with Layla's work, and both her work as a solid Catholic parent and her work engaging these issues online with critics of what the church teaches. So I felt like there was a good congruence and alliance that could be formed here. And then the book really naturally flowed from that.
Naturally flowed. Is this the first time you've co-written a book, Layla?
Yes. Yes, it is.
So how does
Same for me.
Yeah, how did that creative process work?
It went really well.
Did it start when you were, because Trent, you were in Phoenix until just about a year ago.
Yeah, so
right?
we were in the same city. We met and got lunch and talked about the idea of the book. And then once it was greenlit, we had a table of contents. We had the outline. And kind of what would happen now, sometimes with co-authored books, you just get one person writes one half, the other writes the other half, or you alternate chapters. But these are all really a synthesis of our thoughts. So what would usually happen is one of us would come up with the bulk of it, the slab of granite, and it would go back and forth from each of us to kind of shave away at it and edit. And so we would exchange it back and forth multiple times until we had something we both really liked. And so I think it formed a good synthesis of our voices. The book is written primarily in Layla's voice from her experience as a parent. But as I said, I do pop up in there often in the
he pops
footnotes.
up. Yes,
Were there
thankfully.
points of contention, or that's not the way we want to argue that, or it was all pretty smooth?
I mean, there might have been a couple times where we had to discuss the best approach to a particular section, but I don't remember anything.
No, I don't think so.
contentious.
I think sometimes I hedge on being more. Sometimes I can get too academic and worry about overqualifying things, and I think that we had a discussion that might not be helpful in a text for parents. We want to make this as easily accessible for readers as we can, and so good compromise there is if I think this technicality should be in the main text, it can go to the footnotes where I like to live, and so but other than that, we were really
Is
on
he
target.
He's a bit of a geek.
I love
Layla?
that part.
Yeah.
I love that because I always say I don't do the scholarly part. I really don't remember my footnote protocol. So it was really excellent that he was able to take all that.
888-318-7884, 888-31-TRUTH. This is Catholic Answers Live. We are here in studio with co-authors of our new book, Made This Way, Layla Miller and Trent Horn. Now, anyone who calls the show today gets a free copy of the book. So call in with your question, 888-318-7884. But if you don't get in and you want a copy of the book, there are 3 options, my friends. You can get an individual copy. Go to shop.catholic.com and use the promo code CALive18 and you can save 20%. If you buy 5 copies or more, and this is the kind of book that you can give to, other moms, right? Other parents, friends in your parish, to your parish priest, right? Teachers at the parochial school. So you buy 5 copies or more, your cost goes down to $10 a copy, 40% savings. This is the real bargain, and I know we've already done a bunch of these already, right, Trent? If you buy a case of the book, which is 20 in the case.
20 for $100.
Yeah, and so down to $5 a copy.
Yep.
And I know we're going to be hearing later on the show from a lovely lady who has bought, a dozen of these cases.
I'm extremely excited. There are parishes that have purchased 800 of them through this special online deal just to give to all of their parishioners. And a great place to get all that is at the website madethiswaybook.com.
Right, and all these different purchase options are there.
They're
as well.
all there.
Okay, madethisway.com or madethiswaybook.com.
Madethiswaybook.com.
Madethiswaybook.com or go to shop.catholic.com. We will be right back with your calls.
Join us on air today on Catholic Answers Live.
Pope Francis reminds us that it does not take a specialized degree in theology to become a great evangelist. We're all called to evangelize. Think about the woman at the well. After she encountered Jesus, she immediately went into the city and invited others to meet him as she had. You and I can go out now and do the same. And St. Paul Street Evangelization can help. Get involved today by contacting us at streetevangelization.com. That's streetevangelization.com.
What's stopping you from becoming a Catholic?
Why can't women become priests?
I don't understand why I have to earn salvation.
How is it possible that God created everything?
Why do I need to confess my sins to a priest?
Why is the Catholic Church so unwilling to
The Catholic Church is too rich.
Catholics worship Mary and are
As far as I'm concerned, all religions are equal.
You are called to communion with Dr. David Anders. Tonight, 11 p.m. Eastern on the EWTN Global Catholic Radio Network.
Catholic Answers Live. My name is Chris Check. I am president of Catholic Answers, sitting in for your usual host, Cy Kellett, who will be back tomorrow. With me in studio today, Trent Horn and our very special guest, all the way from Phoenix, Layla Miller, co-authors of their brand new book, Made This Way. We're taking questions today on how to answer difficult moral questions to your preteens and your teens alike. So if you're a parent, if you're a teacher, and you've been faced with the kind of difficult moral questions really that are unprecedented, they're unique to our age, we're here to help you march through these, walk through these with your little ones. Let's go to Rachel from the Midwest calling on Real Presence Radio. Rachel, welcome to Catholic Answers Live.
Hello, and I am an educator, and I'm actually taking a continuing education class.
God bless
you. In that class, we've been assigned 2 readings that promote sexting.
Oh, my.
And that's the sharing of explicit images via technology. And so some of the main ideas the author has presented are that sexting is freedom of expression, and it is a sign that students have a trust and consensual relationship. It has also been presented that sexting should not be considered child pornography and therefore unprosecutable by law. Several of my classmates have expressed that they've changed their views following these readings, and I'm struggling with how to respond. So any suggestions I would greatly appreciate.
Wow, Rachel, way to lead with a heavy question.
Rachel, I need to know, to get clarification before we provide our answers. Is this continuing education class, is it for a public school continuing education, or is it like a religious school at continuing education?
It is public.
It's okay, so this is
but still,
But even still, so public school continuing education class promoting that sexting is a good thing for minors to do under the age of 18?
Yes.
Well, I have a ton of thoughts on that. Layla, would you?
I'm
Okay,
actually.
we can take the next 2 hours.
I have to be honest. I have never heard of any adult actually promoting sexting. I always thought, from what I've heard so far, it's been about, caution and telling kids that they should not be doing this. So this actually takes me by surprise that this is being specifically promoted.
Well, what's interesting, there's a great article that was published in 2010 on this subject in the Journal of Law and Technology. It's called "Sexting and Teenagers. OMG, Are You Going to Jail?" is the actual name of the article. So I think what you can point out with your friends who are talking about this, there's two areas you could go if this is in public education. One would be the practical concerns. You could just talk about the pure practical, pragmatic dangers involved in this. And then the second would be talking the principled dangers about how this treats how you treat other people, where you can put forward a religious reason or not, depending on where the person's coming from. But just from a practical element, this is an abundantly stupid book. That someone would say this, that there are he might say, well, it shouldn't be considered child pornography. It is. I don't believe we should lock up teenagers who do this. I believe they've made a horrid mistake and they need to, be getting help for doing this. But there are teenagers who are facing 5, 10, 15-year jail terms for sending these images around. So the author's talking about very risky behavior, encouraging sexual behavior, and could lead to incarceration.
Rachel, just to clarify, the text that you describe says that this is okay for minors, right, to do this because it's evidence of a consensual relationship?
Yep. That they, if they feel that they have a trusting relationship, that they should be able to send those images and not have.
I mean, Layla Trent, this is an extraordinary example of the depth of wickedness of some people in positions of influence.
Yeah. Right.
I mean, it's absolutely revolutionary.
It is like nothing we've ever seen.
All right. Well, what's some counsel we can give Rachel?
Another point that I would add then, as a principled area to counter this, is say this is not a demonstration of trust in a relationship. To say that your body is something, even people who are secular will agree that, your body is something that is special, it's something that should not be abused or used. But when you send a nude or semi-nude photograph of yourself to someone else, you have now allowed yourself to be used by anyone. You've raised teenagers, Layla. You can't even trust them to pack their lunches for school. Right. Would you trust your teenage boyfriend or girlfriend with a nude picture of yourself? I certainly would not do that.
Well, in almost all cases, these things end badly. The image gets shared
and it'll
widely.
Never go away.
Yep.
Right. Once it's out there, it doesn't go away ever.
Yep.
Yeah. And that's exploitation of this child. So. Wow. I mean, I want to say that in the past we would perhaps think of legal action against the adults who are claiming that this is okay. Right. So we flipped this on its head.
So, Rachel, I would recommend if you stay on the line, I would like to get your email address. One thing, if you're dealing with secular individuals who are promoting this, to just provide them secular resources related to the harms of sexting and the abuses that can follow from that are not even from a religious perspective, the cold, hard facts that they should look to. And then in our book, I would recommend you read the chapters on pornography, where Layla and I talk about how pornography uses people, objectifies them, ultimately leads us to ruin as a human person to share with others. So I think that might be helpful for you.
Yeah, and I was even thinking the chapter on modesty.
Yes.
That came up into my mind as well, because we have forgotten what modesty is and what it means, and it's not always what we think it means today, but that's important.
Rachel, thank you very much for your call. Trent, before we go to the next call, you made a point to Rachel, which was a question that I had for you and Layla. Do I have to be particularly religious to get benefit from Made This Way? Is this written for Catholics or Christians, or could someone who doesn't necessarily have religious beliefs but maybe a sense of the natural law, is he or she going to benefit from the book?
Well, that's the genius of the book, and I really owe that to Layla, as providing that as the string that's put everything together. And that's what she can share more from her own parenting experience, that to be a good parent, to share our Catholic moral values, is to show they are eminently reasonable. And that is why we use a natural law framework, and Layla's done that successfully for many years now.
Yeah, that's how I wanted to approach this whole topic, because that's how I've raised my children. And I didn't know it had a name. I didn't understand, that this was a philosophical thing. This natural law term wasn't even familiar to me until I was in my 40s. But looking back, that's how I've raised all my kids, which is to say, we something according to its design or its nature. And to do that means that things will go the way they're supposed to, and it'll be a healthy outcome. And to use something against its nature would, of course, lead to unfavorable results or even disaster, chaos. So and that, as St. Paul says, in Scripture, that even the pagans can understand creation, or they can see how things ought to be based on just their reason alone. God has planted that in their hearts.
So my friends, you don't need to. Your friend does not need to be a Catholic, or it could be a public school teacher who professes no particular belief to benefit from this book, and then maybe we do some stealth evangelization.
Absolutely,
right in there. 888-318-7884, 888-31-TRUTH. Remember, folks, everyone who calls today gets a free copy of Trent and Layla's book. Let's go to Teresa on Long Island, listening on Sirius XM EWTN 130. Teresa, welcome to Catholic Answers Live.
Thank you for taking my call.
Sure.
So I'm a Catholic campus minister at a high school here on Long Island, and I'm living in the apologetics battleground with some of these teenagers, and it's what I love about my job. I listen to you guys all the time. It's where I get a lot of my my conversation pieces and my confidence to kind of go into those conversations, knowing how to articulate myself as a young Catholic woman. But a situation has come up very specifically in my school where a young lady identifies as transgender, and she's the first person in our Catholic school to openly express interest in transitioning into being a man. And so she's gone as far as to change her name to a boy's name and ask teachers to call her by the male pronouns. And so the bishop and the chaplains got involved and said, we can't go that far. We can't call you, but we're making certain.
Yeah, these things don't really stand very much scrutiny.
No, they don't. They don't. And so it's thinking about on your podcast too, that this seems to be very much a fad that has come up and now is really exponentially growing. You see it where you didn't see it even 5-10 years ago, and now all of a sudden entire schools are exploding with maybe not the Catholic schools so much, especially in good dioceses, but you'll in a public school all of a sudden a great number of people are starting to transition or saying that, let's experiment with this gender fluidity, because something opens up like that and it's a thing now that is, affirmed and expected even. More and more people who would never have even given in their lives 10, 20, 30 years ago, or 30 years ago when I was in high school, all of a sudden it's an option and it's a thought. Well, maybe this will maybe this is why I'm not feeling settled inside. It must be because of this thing that everyone says I'm supposed to be experimenting with. So we don't know why she's doing that right now. I mean, she may have had a trauma in her home. She may have had or she may be looking for identity. She may be looking for family in a different way. So all that has to be taken into consideration. What is the trauma, that would make her, again, this seems to be kind of sudden. And, I'm sure there are some people maybe who have felt this way since childhood. But then again, you have to look into, well, why would that be? But bottom line is you're right not to go along with this, what ultimately is a delusion in her mind for whatever reason, and to not use those pronouns that she's demanding.
I would say keep the channels of communication open, affirm as much as you, her school accomplishments, athletic accomplishments, personal interests, whatever they may be, to show that you actually do care about her and want her, and to be someone who will not feel judgmental. But if she asks you about the issue of transgender, you can phrase it this way: there's things about when people say that don't make sense to me that I have a hard time understanding, and in that way, it doesn't sound like you're trying to refute or condemn her. You're sharing your perspective, much like she's sharing her perspective. And if you keep the channel of communication open and show that you're someone who will at least listen fairly, that can be helpful if, after transitioning allegedly to being a male, these people find out it's not all it's cracked up to be, they detransition back and you can be there to help walk her through that whole journey.
Teresa, we have to go to a break. Buy a case of 20 made this way for only $5 each at shop.catholic.com. More with Trent and Layla after the break.
Got questions? Visit us today at Catholic.com.
A generation ago, Christian parents didn't have to worry about how to explain transgenderism to their 9-year-old children or help deal with mockery at school for believing in traditional marriage. But today, as our culture decays, we have to know how to talk to our children about these issues. How to prepare kids to face today's tough moral issues, Layla Miller and Trent Horn give parents the crucial tools and techniques to form children understanding they need appropriate to their age and maturity level to meet the world's challenges. If we're not teaching our children how to understand tough, then the world will. Read Made This Way and learn how to give your kids a firm foundation on which to build a life of moral clarity, and order your copy of Made This Way today by calling 1-888-291-8000 or logging onto the shop at Catholic.com.
In commemoration of the 50th anniversary of the release of Humani Vitae, there have been fresh attacks on Catholic teaching from outside and unfortunately inside the Church. That's why Catholic Answers thought it critical to provide a vigorous affirmation of Pope Paul VI's prophetic wisdom with our newest inseparable 5 perspectives on sex, life, and love in defense of Humani Vitae. We asked 5 distinguished contributors to reflect on Humani Vitae from 5 perspectives, each of them compelling, together forming a mosaic of truth. Don't be caught uninformed when up among friends, family, and coworkers. Order your copy of Inseparable today by calling 1-888-291-8000 or by shop at Catholic.com.
(888) 318-7884, 888-31 check. Sitting in for Cy Kellett. The show is Catholic Answers Live. My guests are Layla Miller and Trent Horn. We're talking about hard moral questions and how to talk to children. About Alan in Pensacola, Florida, listening on Sirius XM. Alan, welcome to Catholic Answers Live.
Hello.
Hey, Alan, there you are.
Hey, how are you?
Hey, well, how are you? House damage? You're okay?
No. Luckily, Pensacola, which is about 2.5 hours west of Panama City and Mexico Beach. So,
all right.
Thankfully, we didn't get any of our damage. There's a lot of
prayers for your fellow Panhandle Floridians. What's your question, Alan?
Absolutely. So, we're going through this whole with my my oldest daughter. My oldest daughter goes to a private liberal arts school. And over the past year or so, we've had to deal with all these questions with friends that are, saying that they are lesbians. And she has one friend now who is, claiming to be transgender or transmitting into a male. And so it's been a real topic.
I would fundamentally disagree with the idea you should send your child to a school where their moral formation will suffer, but their academic formation will somehow increase. Because honestly, if you get later in life, it's far easier to reverse damaged academic formation than it is damaged moral formation. If you have damaged academic formation, you just need a tutor. If you have damaged moral formation, you need the Holy Spirit working overdrive. I'd rather deal with the former.
Amen. Let's go to Joe in Lubbock, Texas, home of the greatest rock and roll musician in rock and roll history. Joe, welcome to Catholic Answers Live.
Buddy Holly, that's right.
Yes, you got it on the first guess. No, it's not Mac Davis. You're right. It's Buddy Holly. Joe, what's your question?
I'm a university student, and I guess dealing with more of these moral questions with people that are more so my peers, people that aren't necessarily under their direct influence, or not as influenced by their parents anymore. How do you approach and talk to and even teach with people that might be a little bit more hard set in their ways?
Okay, so this is an interesting approach that I use, and actually I've found that this works with secular people, is to kind of just question them maybe as to, look around. Look around at the peers. Are people generally happy? Are they generally well-adjusted and doing just great? A lot of times you'll see that people's lives are a mess. Sexually, especially, their lives might be a mess. I remember sitting with a friend of mine who was a non-Christian, and this was before I knew the term natural law. But I sat with her in my living room one day, and she was just kind of asking a question about Catholics and why we don't use contraception and things like that. And I just said to her, think about it. Every woman... Usually the deepest wounds that women have experienced in their lives have something to do with the misuse of human sexuality. Whether it's an abortion in their past or being used and abused, having their hearts broken, getting some kind of disease, a divorce, a rape, something like that. It's usually because of a misuse of how we use sexuality. And she looked at me and she said, "You're right." And so there was this dawning of understanding that, okay, maybe we can kind of trace back some of these messes that we see all around us, or our deepest wounds, back to something very basic, which is a misuse of how we were made to be, how we ought to be as humans. And so maybe that could be like a kind of a fun, college students love to talk philosophy, right? So you just kind of bring up these philosophical questions and maybe do it Socratically and maybe identify if they can find that out for themselves, that, yeah, it looks like that's where a lot of the mess is coming from. And then you could take it from there.
Trent, that Socratic style is your field. It's your expertise.
Amen to that. So I would, to tag on to that, Joe, along with asking questions about whether people are satisfied with the results of their ethical decisions, like, is it okay? Are you comfortable with your sexual ethic leading to situations where you're terrified of these sexual encounters, that they're not consensual, or they are, we don't know the lines. Even if we think we're being consensual, people still feel awful later. Is this something we're happy with? So one, the Socratic method on whether you're okay with the results. And I would focus the Socratic method also on the foundation of what they believe and put the burden of proof on them. Like if someone says, well, I disagree with you as a Catholic, I think two people should be allowed to get married, and if they're two men, whatever. Say, well, okay, what do you mean by that? Like, what do you mean by marriage? What is marriage? Is marriage only two people? Well, why is it only two people? Get them to defend what they believe to show that it's incoherent. Or if they say, well, I don't think transgender is a big deal, or it's hateful for you to say that man is not really a man, you could say, well, help me understand transgender. I don't get it. Is there a difference between men and women? Like if I call that person that I believe is a woman a man, there's a difference, right? Yeah, there's a difference between men and women. Okay, what's the difference between men and women? Then you just ask that. Now, if you believe in transgender identity, you can't point to anything objective that is the difference between men and women, even though people on that side will say, oh yeah, if he says he's a man, he's not a woman. Well, then that means there must be a difference between those two terms. And if the difference is only, well, men are people who say they're men, women are people who say they're women, that's an invalid circular definition. So I think in the book, Joe, you might actually benefit from the sections on what the church teaches on these moral issues, and then how to talk to big kids, because you probably have this experience with college students. Most of them are still really big kids anyways. Is that helpful?
It is very helpful.
Good. Joe, if I could recommend also to you, Trent has a DVD or a CD called 3 Secrets to Sharing the Faith or something along those lines. And it's a more expansive treatment of this point that Trent makes over and over almost every time I hear him speak. He says you don't have to have all the right answers. You just have to know how to ask the right questions.
That's right.
So I would recommend that DVD,
Three Secrets to Defending the Faith.
Defending the Faith. And you can get that at shop.catholic.com. Also available at shop.catholic.com. This book that we're talking about today, Made This Way. This is a perfect book for a parent, a grandparent, a teacher, a priest. And you know what I was thinking? Now confirmation classes are starting up, gearing up. So if you're sponsoring someone for confirmation, and they probably haven't particularly well catechized, then if you're a sponsor, this is an excellent book that will help you talk to that soul that you're going to be sponsoring. You can buy it individually. You can buy 5 copies or more, and they cost $10. But the real deal, buy a case of 20, and they are $5 each. Available at shop.catholic.com.
Listeners to Catholic Radio, I think, benefit most, at least initially, from what I call remedial catechesis. What Catholic Radio does is it becomes an echo chamber for the teaching authority of the Catholic Church. And what we're doing is teaching many things which have been neglected over the last 40, 50 years. If you listen to Catholic Radio, you know what the Catholic Church teaches.
Al Cresta thinks Catholic Radio is important. So should you. Catholic Answers Live is brought to you in part by CatholicSingles.com, the website for Catholics who want to meet others who share their Catholic values for faith, fellowship, and love. You can learn more at CatholicSingles.com. Catholic Answers Live thanks CatholicSingles.com for their generous support.
Homeschool Connections, an online provider of courses for your Catholic homeschool, is a sponsor of Catholic Answers Live. Homeschool Connections website is homeschoolconnections.com.
(888) 318-7884, 888-31-TRUTH. I think we have a couple of lines open. Folks, if you don't get on in the first hour, the great news is that Layla and Trent are going to be here in the studio in the second hour. So call with your hard questions. Everyone who gets on the show today gets a free copy of Trent and Layla's new book, Made This Way. I'm Christopher Check, president of Catholic Answer, sitting in for Cy Kellett, who will be back in this chair tomorrow. Let's go to Jose in South Bend, Indiana, listening on Redeemer Radio. Jose, welcome to Catholic Answers Live.
Hello, hi. My question is, and I guess you guys kind of touched some points already. I'm a deacon in the diocese where I live.
God bless you.
And thank you, thank God. The thing is, especially people that like, I guess being clergy, I guess, like a lot of people don't feel like this, like automatically they're kind of like turned off towards the church to ask somebody like that, you know. And sometimes, you know, I've been like so tempted to, you know, to approach some people that are having these issues, but it seems like they're feel less inclined to talk to me or to talk to a priest or somebody like that sometimes, you know, because they automatically think that, you know, the church doesn't approve this, so they just won't you know, try to, you know, talk, I guess, to somebody like that. So I guess I don't know if there's any suggestions or resources, I guess, how to deal with things like that. Then maybe to even help people to want to share, to want to talk, you know, because I think that's the main thing. Because I mean, like things like what you were saying, you know, to reaffirm. I think a thing that happens with people in dealing with these issues is just, in a way, they don't feel that, I guess, the love of God, and or they have lost the fact that they're sons and daughters of God, and you know. But it's just hard to. How can you tell them when they're not really looking for that? They're just trying to want to be reaffirmed on the way they're feeling, and that's it. They don't want anything else.
So how does Jose start a conversation here, Trent?
Sure. I think the important thing is what St. Paul says in his first letter to the Corinthians, I have become all things to all men so I can win some for Christ. And what we see there is Paul is talking about the important principle of meeting people where they are at. And that can start very simply, that if somebody doesn't want to talk about religion, you can't really probably talk about religion with them. First, you have to build rapport with them over any kind of common ground you can find, whether it's, you know, sports, politics, kids, your families, your neighborhood, building that kind of common ground first on these interests. And this happens to me all the time. I'll travel for work and people ask me what I do, and I talk about the church and they get a little uncomfortable. So I try to find something, you know, and I have a wide, you know, I think you said earlier, it's a little geeky in some ways, and I have a wide array of knowledge to try to connect with people. We form that kind of connection, so we build that bond, and then we can bring up these other issues after we've made that bond with someone over something less controversial, and then asking them. And remember, when we talk about these issues, like if you're a deacon, it's hard when they're talking to you. These people might feel like you're standing toe-to-toe with them. You're the church, they're the people, and it's like a fight, and you don't want it to be that way. So you want to make your questions like, what do you think about this stuff? Or what do you think about this issue? So that you're almost standing kind of shoulder to shoulder, and you're just looking at it, and you just want to see what they think about it. And I think that's a kind of attitude that can be helpful to have these good conversations.
Layla?
Well, and I want to say, Jose, don't sell yourself short. I mean, just from this very short time of hearing you, you sound like a very friendly and very caring person.
Oh, yeah, he's clearly giving the love of Jesus Christ.
Exactly. So my thought is you need to realize you're probably coming off as a very a nice and loving person who could have these friendships or could approach people and not be immediately dismissed by them as someone terrible or awful. So I have a feeling that you do give off a really inclusive and nice vibe to everyone. And I will tell you that I've spent many years debating really hardcore secular people who do not like the Catholic Church and her teachings. But what I have found is that we could be debating something really difficult, but privately I'll talk to some of them, or I'll get them on email, and especially college students or really smart, wonderful people. But I've been surprised when I've asked them, hey, you know what? You're about my daughter's age. Do you mind if I treat you almost a little maternally? And every time I've asked that question, it absolutely shocks me that they always say, yes, I would like that. And it's almost like we underestimate ourselves or the human connection that we can make with people when people really do want to make those connections. And you might have a different perspective than they do, and maybe part of them subconsciously kind of wants to hear what a deacon has to say, but needs to know that you're not pouncing on them to right off the bat or ever. And you just seem like a really friendly guy that would not be an issue. So be really confident in how you are, because I see you're a great guy.
Jose, God bless you for your ministry, and keep Catholic Answers in your prayers, please. Let's go to Kathy in Lake Charles, Louisiana, listening on EWTN Radio, Sirius XM. By the way, another great bishop there in Lake Charles, Louisiana. Kathy, welcome to Catholic Answers Live.
Hi. My question is dealing with my grandson. He's only 5 years old, okay? But he goes to a very small public school, and when I say small, there's like 15 kids through a grade. Well, and it's a very good school. Not a Catholic school, but Catholic school is kind of out of the picture for financial reasons. But he has, I'm just going to use some fake names here, okay? So he has a little boy in his class, let's call him John, and there's the lunch lady, let's call her Miss Sue, okay? We're just sitting around the table the other day, and my grandson just said, you want to know something weird? He said, John, Miss Sue is really John's dad. Isn't that weird? I'm so confused.
The answer is yes, it is weird.
I just didn't even know what to say.
Yeah. How do we help here? 5-year-old.
So, yeah, that's like when I had my 5-year-old ask me a question about, girls marrying girls. And so my response, first of all, would be always to not freak out. That's always my first, rule. Don't freak out.
Say it multiple times in the book. Don't freak out.
Don't freak out. And your child or your grandchild needs to know that you are in control and you're the adult here, and you have an answer, or you're willing to have a talk about this, and you're willing to give them guidance on this. I generally would lead with, oh, honey, that's so sad that there's a confusion there, because clearly a woman cannot be someone's father. And you would, instantly clear that up. And then because the child may have heard, and this other child may think that that's the dad of a group of lesbians, is I guess what we're talking about here. That's more the masculine parent. You would reaffirm that no, that Miss Sue is a woman, and that isn't it sad? And again, this is what I did with my child. Isn't it sad when a child doesn't have a mother and a father like God intended? So it's very, very sad what has happened here, but we love your friend, and we love his parents, but they're very confused. They're very confused, and we need to pray for them, because God wanted every child to have a mother and a father. In fact, that's the child's right, is to have their own mother and their father. So let's pray for them. Again, it's going to be tricky because it's a small school and there's only 15 kids and you don't have an option. So you'll have to keep kind of maybe reiterating this to him and giving him a foundation that's not normal, and that's not how God intended it, but in the most loving way that you can.
Mm-hmm.
Trent?
No, I would agree, and this is close to myself. I mean, my oldest son is going to be 4 here pretty soon, and we were actually walking through the park the other day, and there were 2 men passionately embracing one another. So these issues, the reason we wrote Made This Way is because these issues approach even our youngest children, who we'd love to have, for them to have more of a sense of innocence, and you should do your best to protect your child's innocence. But we have to admit, in this day and age, it's very hard to come by. So I think the first rule is, when these questions come up, is to not freak out, like Layla said, to ask questions of your own in return, to say, well, who said that Johnny's the lunch lady is Johnny's daddy. Who said that? What do you think? Who do you think, who can be a daddy? Could mommy be your daddy? If you had two daddies, where would the baby come from? Mm-hmm. And just asking questions like that, which is probably how I would approach it with my own 4-year-old, that they start to think things through. They're, kids at age 4 or 5, they're very logical cause and effect. Even if they might make some, incorrect conclusions or assessment, they're still very on track to not be swayed by emotions, but just they reason from cause and effect and from authority. So at that age, and I think, Layla, you have a lot more experience with this than I do, they come to believe things are true because people they trust tell them that it's true.
Mm-hmm.
That's the number one thing. Children at that age believe something because someone they trust tells them that. And then 2, they can back that up by, I listen to my own children, to my oldest son. He'll give these particular reasons. He at this age, he gives reasons about why things are the way they are. So they can tap into that. So I think what you'd have to go into is to, 1, be that authority. Say, no, they're confused. This is who mommies are. This is who daddies are. Everyone has a mommy and a daddy, and that they're a boy and a girl. And it's sad if people don't have their real mommy and daddy. They're the mommy and daddy they came from. And then help them see how logical that is. And they're ready at that age to hear that.
Layla Trent, we're coming up here on the end of the hour. Of course, you'll be with us for the second hour, so everybody in the queue will get a chance to ask a question. But it occurs to me, every question that we got in the first hour pertained in some way to a misunderstanding or a misuse of God's gift of sexuality. You got a minute left. What in the world? What unpack that?
Yeah.
There are other tough moral questions, but so many of these are. This really is. This is something the devil has been masterful.
Well, I've said that it goes back to the garden. The things of human creation were life and marriage and male and female. So if he can attack those 3 things, we've got it with abortion, we've got it with gay marriage, and we've got it now with transgender. The devil has covered the gamut.
The devil wants to attack us because the most amazing thing we can do as human beings, we can do something angels cannot do, and that is partner with God to bring a person with an immortal soul into existence. Not even the angels with their amazing intellects could bring another person with an immortal soul in existence into being. But we can't. And so the devil hates that we have been given this awesome responsibility and has sought every single way to corrupt it as possible so that we can be miserable and not carry out the command of Genesis to be fruitful and multiply and raise children in a godly way.
We have that beautiful image from our chaplain, Father Hugh Barber, that it was a tradition among some of the church fathers that the human population is replacing in the heavenly kingdom the third of the angels who fell. Right? Oh, yeah, it's a beautiful image. Yeah, this is quite a mess. Okay, my friends, if you get on the show today, you get a copy of Made This Way, and if you go to shop.catholic.com, you can purchase an individual copy using the promo code CALive18 to save 20%. You can buy 5 copies or more, and your cost goes down to $10 a copy. Buy a case of 20, and they are $5 a copy. $100, you've got 20 people that you could share this book with, and you'll be doing a lot of good. Chris Check sitting in for Cy Kellett. The number is 888-318-7884. David, Bill, Clarissa, Anthony. We'll get you on in the second hour. Back after the break.
There's only one. Catholic Answers Live.
Can you trust the basis of the Christian faith? The Christian faith is under constant attack today in numerous ways, but the attack that does the most damage is the one that asks a deceptively simple question. What if your faith is based on a myth? The skeptics come with arguments to cast doubt in numerous ways, often attacking the reliability of the New Testament and the Gospels. And the sad news is that most people don't know how to answer these charges. The good news is that there are answers to each and every one of them, good, solid answers. That's why Catholic Answers Studios has just released Jimmy Akin's new DVD, The Dawn of Christian History. With his characteristic wit and passion as a master storyteller, Jimmy takes you through an exciting detective story that reveals how history supports the Christian faith. Order your copy of The Dawn of Christian History today by calling 1-888-291-8000, visiting the shop at Catholic.com, or asking for it at a good Catholic bookstore near you.
Hey everyone, this is Carlo Broussard, and I'm here to tell you about something of eternal importance, the very existence of God. Today's atheists have a new tactic when it comes to talking about God's existence. We don't need God to explain the universe, they say. Science can take care of that. We also don't need him to be moral or happy. Some even say your arguments in favor of God don't even deserve a reply because they're not real explanations to begin with, like science is. Not only does God probably not exist, they argue, he doesn't even matter. In my brand new DVD, Why God Still Matters, I don't let our atheist friends off so easy. I take apart the premises of those who say God's irrelevant and teach you what you need to demonstrate why God is just as important, in fact, in today's world, more important than ever. Don't let atheists shut down the argument before it begins. Get your copy of Why God Still Matters by calling 1-888-291-8000, logging on to Catholic.com, or asking for it at a good Catholic bookstore near you.
The people have spoken, and the verdict is in. Catholic Answers 20 Answers booklets are the perfect tools for catechesis and evangelization. And we're proud to announce that they're now available in ebook format. Clear, concise, and easy to carry. The 20 Answers series from Catholic Answers Press offers hard facts, powerful arguments, and clear explanations of the most important topics facing the Church and the world, all in a compact, easy-to-read package. We've got the information you need to know the Eucharist, salvation, Mary, Mormonism, and so much more. There are 17 titles in all, with more on the way. They're available individually at special bulk prices, or you can get a starter pack of all 17 at a very special price. And remember, you can now purchase them as ebooks for reading on your mobile devices. What are you waiting for? Call 1-888-291-8000 or visit the shop at Catholic.com today to get your copies of all the titles in this exciting new series, or ask for them at a good Catholic bookstore near you.
This is Tim Staples, and I'm excited beyond words at the latest release in our Catholic Answers Classic series, The Faith of Our Fathers by James Cardinal Gibbons, a book that was instrumental in my own journey to the Catholic Church. When it comes to books specifically aimed at our separated brethren who name the name of Jesus Christ, Faith of Our Fathers is simply unequaled as a work of apologetics. The breadth and the scope of this book is astonishing. In one volume, Cardinal Gibbons moves from the Trinity, the four marks of the Church, the papacy, and the communion of saints, to the Marian doctrine, salvation, purgatory, and the seven sacraments, to the Inquisition, the Crusades, the celibacy of the clergy, the priesthood, and more. Do yourself or a friend a favor. Get your hand on this book right now. You can do that by calling 1-888-291-8000, visiting Catholic.com, or asking for it at a good Catholic bookstore near you.
Hello, my friends. Welcome to Catholic Answers Live. Chris Check, president of Catholic Answers, sitting in for Cy Kellett, who will be back in this chair tomorrow. We're going into our second hour with Trent Horn and special guest Layla Miller, co-authors of Made This Way. And you know what? We've got a lot of questions here in the queue. I'm going to go straight to questions.
Sure thing.
All right, David in Colorado, listening. God bless you, David. Listening on the Catholic Answers app. Everyone listening should put that on his or her cell phone. David, welcome to Catholic Answers Live.
Hi, thanks for taking my call.
Sure.
My question so I have a 5-year-old, and she was telling me that when she was in preschool, so I'm guessing is the last year, when she was 4, that she was talking about God to some of her classmates or one of her friends, and then one of her friends, another 4-year-old or 3-year-old, said God doesn't exist, and kind of like made her feel bad for it. And so I was just wondering, like, how do you talk to someone as young as 3 or 4 when it comes to something like that? Like, she obviously has a belief in God, so that wasn't really shaken, but she was clearly upset by it. But also just like how to prep them and talk to them about just persecution that they might even experience from their own classmates at such a young age.
Great question, David.
Sure. I guess that I would start off, you could help your child, even at a very young age, learn the art of the Socratic method when they're talking to their peers. You can say, well, you could even tell, I give this, Chris and I were just at a presentation here in San Diego a few weeks ago, and the advice I gave to those who are in attendance, some of whom are lawyers, CEOs, doctors, that same advice would be just as helpful for a 4-year-old. You could tell your 4-year-old, well, if someone says what you believe isn't true, or they say God doesn't exist, or they say that Jesus isn't God, you can ask them, well, what do you think, and how do you know that's true? How do you know that's true? If they have a friend that says that God doesn't exist, you can tell your 5-year-old now, ask them, how do you know that's true? Or why do you think that? How do you know that? Or why do you think that? And you can train your child to ask other people questions that when they pose these beliefs that I do apologize. Did you say it's your 5-year-old daughter?
Yes.
David. Okay, yeah. So to tell your daughter, to tell her, you don't have to feel the burden of you believe what you believe, and we've told you that, and that's what you believe. You shouldn't have to feel the burden of proving this to other people at your age. But you can always ask them, why do you think that? And when it comes to atheism, if they might say things like, well, I don't see God. Well, where is he? You could teach her to ask questions like, well, do you have to always see something in order to believe it? I mean, I haven't met the president. I've never seen him, but I know that he exists. Or you could come with all different kinds of analogies to help young children to see that. One analogy that might be helpful, especially if you have a child who is struggling with this, even at a young age, like a 4 or 5-year-old, well, I don't believe in God. You could use this kind of reasoning to say, do you think that things are made by other people? Like you could get out a painting to show them and say, do you think somebody made this? Well, yeah. Well, actually, I think this just kind of appeared out of thin air. It just popped right here. Do you think that that's silly? Or, did that car just pop out of nothing? And then just ask them, well, look around, maybe even going out at night or even a little short drive into the country to see the starry sky and to say, we ask who made this painting, who made this car, who made all of this? And so that can be helpful if your child is wavering. It sounds like your child's not. They can ask that same question. It sometimes gets turned back around. They say, well, who made God? You can say, no one. God made everything. He's the one who's the reason that we're all here. And so that might be a kind of a helpful start.
Layla, David's daughter and the daughter or sons and daughters of many of our listeners, all of our children who are believers are going to, especially as they get older, encounter even more hostile questions or arguments from their classmates. How did you walk your kids through that?
Yeah, and here's where I can't stress enough that when your children are small, they trust you. They trust their parents. God has made that, in the right order of things. He has given the authority to parents, and He has made it so that little ones trust their parents. So you need to be again, I use this word a lot, be confident that if you're forming your children correctly, if you're raising them to know God and love God and pray, they're going to believe that. I never had a small child, and in fact, I don't have a big child that doesn't believe in God. But when they're small, especially, they're going to trust you, and they're going to see also that you love God. So if they see you praying, if they see you never missing Mass, if they see you, teaching them the truths of the faith or catechizing them, and they know that that's very important to their parents.
Habits become virtues.
Absolutely. And kids are very smart. They're intuitive. They know if a parent isn't really on board or kind of fudging the faith a little bit here and there, and we can't go to Mass today because we're tired, or live your faith, love God. Your children trust you. They won't be shaken, just as your daughter isn't. They won't be shaken if someone says something that doesn't, that is in disagreement with what you've taught your child, because they believe you. So, trust your own abilities as parents, be confident, and then realize that foundation, once that is there, it's much harder to shake as they get older. It's much harder to shake. But so what we say, if someone says that, we say, isn't that, again, my fallback is always, isn't that so sad? That's just so sad. Because I really mean that in my heart.
Sure,
like,
it is
that's
sad.
so sad.
It's extremely sad.
And let's pray, because that little girl or that little boy has parents who don't know God.
Yeah.
Who don't know God. And isn't that sad? But one day, God might make them all into great saints. So we don't have to demonize or make them see, oh, that must be bad parents or bad kids. Not at all.
Yeah.
But we can pray for them.
I think something else, David, that can be helpful, and for all our listeners, for many of these subjects, is to find appropriate children's stories that drive home these important themes. So earlier in the previous hour, we were talking about the issue of transgender. Telling the story of the Emperor's New Clothes is a perfect parable for that. For this particular episode, for small children who, let's say, for your daughter who has friends who don't believe in God, but she does, a story that's worked well for pro-lifers could work well here, and that would be Horton Hears a Who by Dr. Seuss. You can say, isn't it sad that, Horton knows that, the Who's in Whoville are real. Isn't it sad when his friends don't believe him? But he knows they're there, and they are there. So that works for the pro-life issue, to know the little babies are there in the womb, even if people don't believe you. But also to know that God and angels and everyone, our family who's in heaven, they're there. And isn't it sad other people, even if we know they're there, they don't believe us? Let's pray. Maybe one day, they will believe us and come to know that.
Dr. Seuss of San Diego, California, right? Didn't he live in La Jolla?
I think so, yeah.
David, I would also recommend to you, and obviously you're not going to give this book to your 5-year-old daughter, but it will help you formulate in your own mind the sorts of ways you want to talk about this. Trent Horn's book called Answering Atheism. And then Catholic Answers has done 2 graphic novels. And the first one, and again, this is more for a teenager, but reading them would benefit you in these conversations. The first one is called "The Truth Is Out There."
Yes.
And then the second, which really is the existence of God.
Yeah.
And these are magnificent books. They are hand drawn by a cloistered priest in Massachusetts, I think, whose pen name is Father Amadeus. And the first one is, 2 intergalactic mailmen and their conversations that they have about the existence of God. And then the second one is called The Big Picture. And I would recommend both of those to you. Let's go to David in Michigan, listening on Baraga Radio. Did I pronounce that correctly, David? It's Baraga, right? Father Baraga?
Yep.
Baraga? Okay, good.
Yes.
Welcome to Catholic Answers Live.
Hi. I'm a father of 4. My oldest 2, my 5 and my 7-year-old, they're at the point where they kind of notice things, like they saw, I'm assuming, a transgender person at Walmart, and my 5-year-old spoke up and was like, that boy's dressed really funny. Right. Do I go into the whole subject and explain it to them so that they hear it from me first, or do I hold off and wait for them to come to me with the question?
Yeah, this is a really superb question, Trent and Layla. There was a time, when I was a kid, that there would be that conversation from parents to children about sex, right, or human sexuality, and now it's almost as if it's going to be the children who are going to spring this trap. Maybe before the parents are prepared to. And your book, of course, addresses this.
Yeah, the culture forces our hands, unfortunately, now. Where in the past you had the culture supporting the parents and supporting the children's innocence, but we don't have that anymore. Quite the opposite. So, the church came out with this really incredible document in 1995 called The Truth and Meaning of Human Sexuality. And you can download it. It's from the Pontifical Council for the Family. And we quote it in the book. And it talks about the latency period, which is those years of innocence of a child. So I think JP2 said, somewhere between ages 5 and puberty, you want to keep children innocent. So you don't want to introduce any explicit talk about sex to those children. That's their time of innocence. They don't need to be bothered with that. And every teaching would be kind of an indirect teaching. And then once they hit puberty, of course, you can talk to them more explicitly about those issues, and you must. So now that the culture is forcing our hands, it's going to take some discernment. So if a child is mentioning, if you can see that the child is very troubled by what he has seen at the store with maybe a transgender person, you might want to lead, as Trent said, with some questions like, well, what troubles you about that? Or maybe see just how troubled the child is, or maybe it's just a passing question and they really aren't going to think about it again and are going to go skip off and, go do something fun. But so that's going to be kind of a discernment that you have to make. And then when you do decide, I have to talk a little bit about this, just make sure you're not going farther than you have to, because you don't want to give them more information than they're needing or asking for, because that's a mistake I know that a lot of parents make. They just start spilling it. And no child needs to hear everything just because they had one simple question. So kind of, feel that out and make sure that you're not going too far. But sometimes you do have to talk about these things.
Yeah, get ahead of it. Trent?
No, I would agree that you have to walk the line between being too explicit. But I think the graver danger, though, is when this comes up, to simply panic, not say anything, and pretend to ignore it,
right,
and hoping your child will forget. They won't. And so if they think you are not a trustworthy source on this issue, they will go to someone else who will give them less than trustworthy advice. So as we say in the book, routinely, have confidence in your parenting. God chose you to be a parent, not because you're the perfect parent. He chose you to be these child's parents just because you are you, and he trusted you with them. He could have given them to someone else. He could have chosen not to give you children. He's within his right to do that. Yet he trusted you, and so he knows you will listen to him and have the ability to lead your children and to give these explanations that are age appropriate for them and will help guide them to the truth. And the great way to do is ask, questions. And when you ask your child questions, where did you hear about this? What do you think about this? It gives you time in your own mind to come up with the explanation you want to give, so you're not kind of fumbling around with the words at the last minute.
888-318-7884, 888-31-TRUTH. A couple of lines open to ask a hard moral question, to learn how to handle hard moral questions from your children, from our guests, Layla Miller and Trent Horn, authors of Made This Way. My friends, you can get a copy of Made This Way for 20% off at shop.catholic.com. Enter the promo code CALive18. You can buy a case of 20. Your cost goes down to $5 a copy, a 70% savings. Anyone who gets on the show today gets a free copy, and that's courtesy of a very generous donor named Joe who bought a whole case. So thank you, Joe, for that, and everyone keep Joe in your prayers. And coming up right after this break, we're going to talk to a very special lady named Mary who has bought many cases of this book. Right back after the break.
Have a question? We've got answers. Catholic Answers Live.
Are you a coffee drinker? If so, you can now enjoy a coffee roasted to perfection by the Carmelite monks of Wyoming. Delicious Mystic Monk coffee is roasted and prepared by monks in a hidden cloistered monastery and is available in over 25 varieties. All Mystic Monk coffees are works of perfection and labors of love. For more information on how to purchase Mystic Monk coffee, visit mysticmonkcoffee.com. That's mysticmonkcoffee.com.
Father Robert Spitzer.
First of all, you will get a much deeper awareness of your faith, much deeper awareness of the evidence for your faith, explanations of tough theological issues, how science and reason and faith come together, and above all, a deeper awareness of how to practice your faith and how to live it.
Father Spitzer's Universe with Father Robert Spitzer. Friday, 8 p.m. Eastern on EWTN Radio.
888-318-7884, 888-318-7884, 888-31-TRUTH. A couple of lines open to talk to Trent Horn and Layla Miller. Before we do, we're just going to take a quick phone call here from a dear friend who's bought many cases of Made This Way. Mary Wagner, welcome to Catholic Answers Live.
Hello, Chris.
Hey, how are you, Mary? Thank you so much. How many cases of this book have you shared with the world?
I'm on my fourth case.
God bless you. Good. And what sorts of people have you been giving them to? Strangers on the street, people you meet on the subway?
Not so much that, but I do keep my case in my car so I can give it to people at any time. But it started with my women's group. I'm in the parish women's group, and it's a good-sized group of 40 women of all different ages. And when I got the email about the book, I'm like, this is something that every Catholic parent has to have, because these conversations are so hard and all these new topics are coming at us so fast. So I got a case for my women's group, and I brought it in, sold out instantly. I mean, I am selling it. I'm not giving it to my women's group. And I had to order another case for them. My DRE from my parish wanted 4 to give to the principal, to the pastor, to the head of RCIA. And then a priest in another parish wanted 5. And so every time I turned around, someone wanted more. So I had to order more.
God bless you,
And then
Mary.
my nephew is a seminarian, and I told him about it. And I asked him if he wanted a copy, and he said, I mean, I do a good commercial for the book, by the way. But
You're doing a very good one right now, Mary, I assure you. Yes, yeah. What diocese do you live in, Mary?
Cleveland.
The fortunate people of Cleveland. What kind of feedback have you had?
Well, my deacon, I was in adoration, and my deacon walked in and just tapped me on the shoulder and said, Mary, this is so good. And this is the same deacon who told me, if we can't help young people get these issues right, we might as well not even teach them anything else, because we're going to lose them all. So he was so grateful.
No,
so that's my best feedback.
That's well said. Well, good. Well, keep spreading the good word, Mary, and all of us here at Catholic Answers are very grateful to you, and you are in our prayers, and please keep Catholic Answers in your prayers as well.
Absolutely.
And we'll talk to you soon. God bless you, dear. We're going to go back to calls. Let's go to Bill in New York on 101.7 Stations of the Cross. Bill, welcome to Catholic Answers Live.
Thanks, Chris. It's nice to talk to you and to Trent and Layla there. I know that any book that's associated with the Council of Trent is going to be awesome, because I really enjoy
Get it?
COUNSEO.
Get it?
TrentHornPodcast.com. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
So, Trent, I was wondering, how, with natural law, can we explain that to people if they ask? Because some people might say, like, well, if it's natural, isn't it readily apparent to me?
That's a good question. When we
That's a
say
great question.
natural, what the natural law is, the natural law is simply a rational creature's participation in the eternal law of God. So God created the universe. The universe is not an accident. God desires the universe to function a certain way. So there's physical laws of nature, that he's fine-tuned the universe, that gravity has a specific value so that there can be life at all. So there's physical laws about how matter interacts with one another. But also there are laws not just about the way things interact or the way they commonly act, but the way that they should act. And so that's where natural law comes in. That's where rational creatures can use our minds and come to understand, that this is the way the world's been created, and things are for a certain purpose. I can see that human beings should be treated a certain way. And so people who say, well, it's not readily apparent to me what natural law is, that doesn't prove there is no such thing as natural law. For example, you could ask friends who say, well, it doesn't seem apparent to me. Ask them a natural law truth that is apparent, like all human beings are equal in dignity, or we ought to respect the dignity of every human being. And any friend, and even a friend who's a skeptic of natural law, will probably agree with that sentiment. Yet then you'll say, well, one, how do you prove that that's true? It's not a scientific truth. And two, would you stop believing that just because there's people who disagree? I mean, 150 years ago, the statement, all people are equal, all human beings are equal, was not readily apparent to many people who believed in slavery. This has been happened throughout history. There's always been people who, through sin or ignorance, have dulled their ability to detect the natural law. But that doesn't mean it's not apparent. So, for example, just because there are some people who are colorblind and are unable to distinguish between colors, that doesn't mean us who do see colors, there's not an objective reality there. Another similar analogy I might make might be with mathematics, that we know mathematics are these natural objective truths that exist outside of our own minds, yet from the guy who dropped Calc AB, math is not readily apparent to me, but it is certainly objective. And so we can see the same thing with morality and natural law itself by just asking people, what is this for? And people get that with their own bodies. You say, what is the heart for? Well, it's for pumping blood. How do you know that? Well, you look at its structures. What are the lungs for breathing? Okay, then you can ask, well, what are these sexual organs for? And then it's funny, people will immediately jump away from what we can naturally see to something based on their desires rather than from simply looking at anatomy and nature itself, because they have a pre-existing agenda driving their conclusion. And I think it's fair to point that out. So that'd be my thoughts on that, I think.
What do you think, Layla?
Well, and we go into that in the chapter on natural law. We talk also about what natural law is and what natural law is not, and there's confusion about that. Some people think that it means what happens in nature, the laws of nature. Well, that's not what we're talking about. Some people think it means what comes naturally to me, like what I naturally desire. Well, that's not the natural law, because the natural law is another term for the universal moral law. So we might say that there could be some men out there who their natural desire is to commit adultery on a habitual, regular basis, but we wouldn't say that that's what they ought to do.
Right.
And we would know that, but we would say, well, but it comes naturally to them. Well, it doesn't mean it's the right thing to do. It doesn't mean that it corresponds with the universal moral law.
Yeah.
And things like that.
Right, and I would add that, so natural law and what comes naturally, the relationship between the two, that's basically instincts and natural law. C.S. Lewis made the comparison of keys on a piano and sheet music. So the keys, you can play different keys at different times, but only when you play them in the right order do you get harmonious music. It's the same way with our instincts. Our instincts are good at certain times and bad at other times. So as we say in the book, like with children, fighting is a good instinct if someone's trying to abduct your brother. Fighting is a bad instinct when you're trying to get a toy from your brother and he won't let go. So the natural law tells us what natural instincts we should use at different times. Sometimes it will come naturally to use those instincts, and other times we will fight our own instincts to do what's right in conformity with the natural law. And it takes time to understand that, to listen to one's conscience, and to be informed by that. And thank God we have the church who gives us the grace and divine revelation to help us fully know that.
And there's a whole chapter in the book,
Yep.
right?
To explain that.
And if someone wanted to dig deeper, even beyond that chapter in the book, Layla, Trent, what resources would you point someone to if somebody wanted to kind of really get their imagination around this idea of the natural law?
I really love...
I should say this reality of the natural law.
Yeah, I have to say I really like, and I wish I could pronounce his last name, but it's Dr. Jay Budiszewski. I don't know if I'm saying that right.
Budiszewski.
Yes.
He's from
University of
Texas,
Austin.
Texas, Austin. Yep.
And one of his books
First-rate guy.
Yes. He was an atheist.
Especially on human sexuality questions.
Yes. He was an atheist to begin with. He teaches college students. He knows all the stuff that's going on. And one of his books that I love is What We Can't Not Know.
Right.
Yeah, and so if you just look up J. Bud, period, and then B-U-D, Natural Law, What We Can't Not Know. Another good book by Charles Rice is called 50 Questions on the Natural Law.
Yeah, great law professor from Notre Dame, a pro-life warrior from the old days.
That's a great classic on the subject.
Absolutely. I think we're going to try to squeeze in one. Maybe we'll get the question in before, and then we'll do the answer after the break. Clarissa in San Antonio, listening on Guadalupe Radio. Welcome to Catholic Answers Live.
Thank you for taking my call. I'm an instructor of a confirmation class of high school students, and it's really hard for me to get through to them. And I had a reversion to the Catholic Church in my own faith journey.
God bless you.
Like night and day.
Praise God.
So, when they ask me, like, how do I know Jesus, I don't know if I should really reveal a lot about my past and about my reversion, because I don't know if that's appropriate, because in my past I did have a lot of sexual sin and, using recreational drugs in college. So I don't know how much I should share with them since they're high schoolers.
Clarissa, this is a great question, and it's going to take some unpacking, and I think if we can hold it for the other side of the heartbreak, which we're about to come up against. In the meantime, folks, so Clarissa, please hang on the line, okay? And we're gonna, and thank you for this question, and also for your courage in asking it. And so we're gonna address that right after the break. I'll remind all of you, anybody who gets on the show today, 888-318-7884. Gets a free copy of Made This Way. If you don't get on the show, go to shop.catholic.com. Use the promo code CALive18 to save 20%. Buy 5 copies, and they're $10 each. Buy a case of 20, and they're down to $5 a copy, and you can pass them out like Mary in Cleveland. Back after the break.
We're here for you. Give us a call today on Catholic Answers Live.
Have you visited Catholic.com lately? We've got a whole new look, better navigation than ever before, and lots of great new features to make your Catholic.com experience one that will have you coming back again and again. You'll find the answers to thousands of questions on all things Catholic, and our extensive library of audios, videos, tracts, articles, and more gets larger every day. When you need answers about the Catholic faith, turn to someone you can trust. Catholic.com, the most trusted destination in Catholic apologetics. That's Catholic.com.
A generation ago, Christian parents didn't have to worry about how to explain transgenderism to their 9-year-old or help their teenager deal with mockery at school for believing in traditional marriage. But today, as our culture's moral center continues to fly apart, and with every form of deviance publicly aired and celebrated, we have no choice but to equip our kids to understand about such issues. In Made This Way, How to Prepare Kids to Face Today's Tough Moral Issues, Layla Miller and Trent Horn give parents the crucial tools and techniques to form children with the understanding they need, appropriate to their age and maturity level, to meet the world's challenges. Silence can no longer be an option. If we're not teaching our children how to understand tough moral issues, then the world will. Read Made This Way and learn how to give your kids a firm foundation on which to build a life of moral clarity and happiness. Order your copy of Made This Way today by calling 1-888-291-8000 or logging on to the shop at Catholic.com.
(888) 318-788-4, 888-31-TRUTH. Christopher Check sitting in for Cy Kellett. The show is Catholic Answers Live. My guests are Trent Horn, staff apologist at Catholic Answers, and our special guest all the way from Phoenix, Arizona, though born in Bethesda, Maryland. I found out we're from from the same place.
From the same place, from the
hood.
hood.
Layla Miller, and co-author with Trent of Made This Way. Everyone who gets on the show gets a free copy. Clarissa, did you hang on there after the break? Are you there?
Yes, I'm still here.
Oh, glory.
Yeah.
Okay, so Clarissa was explaining before the break that she had quite a reversion, and we're couldn't be more joyful about that. She's a confirmation sponsor. She wants to know how much of a difficult past she should reveal to her. What is the average age of confirmation kids now? And you're calling from San Antonio, I guess, so it's probably 14. Or how old are the kids, Clarissa?
They're in high school. They're mostly 15 years old and one 16-year-old.
Okay. All right. Is there anything that she's going to say that's going to shock them, Layla, at this point?
Well, probably not. I'm sure they've seen it and heard it. But then the question is, how much
the tone,
right, and how much do you want them to know about their, their confirmation sponsor, or their So that question comes up a lot. And I never have a really good answer for that because it really is subjective as to who the kids are. How well do you know them? Are they going to end up glorifying in some way that, gosh, my confirmation sponsor was hardcore into drugs and she's great now,
right.
It didn't affect her, she got out of it. So, you kind of have to know your subject there.
This is something that I think a lot of parents will struggle with, when they're trying to teach these moral issues to their children, because their children will naturally ask questions
what
like,
mistakes did you make, Dad?
Right, especially even pointed ones like, did you wait to have sex until you were married?
Right.
Mm-hmm. And you do a good job. We covered a little bit in the book where that comes up, and it might be good to share with other parents who are listening when those questions are posed, that you do have a right to privacy with either your own children or children that you're teaching.
Yeah, and I've said that. Yeah, we've talked about it on one of the shows too, I believe, where most of my kids, like, I mean, I am a revert at age 27, so I have a very colorful history. And my kids, the little kids, don't have any idea. And the older kids, some don't want to know, which is great. The ones that have asked me when they've become older, if they're still minors or even in high school, I might just look at them and say, that's really none of your business. But, you know, maybe it'll hint to them that, yeah, there's something there, but I'm really not going to talk to you about that right now. And then a couple of them did want to know past, even at the time that they were getting married or after that. And we have a very friendly relationship. My adult kids and I are very close. So the ones who wanted to know at that point, I'm like, we're adults now. You know, I can tell you what you want to know. But I was already very secure that they were in no way going to glamorize anything that I could have told them. So it really is, again, you're right. It's your own personal business. If you don't want to share that, you certainly don't have to.
But I think what Clarissa is asking here is there some benefit to her sharing her conversion story? I mean, this is kind of a genre in apologetics, if you will. Maybe that's not the right word, Trent. But I think of guys like Father Donald Calloway, Leah Darrow, who used to work for us here at Catholic Answers, and then there's that chap named St. Augustine that we go back to. Yeah. So if I understand Clarissa's question, it's could she actually help some of these kids who may in fact be mired in some of this stuff
I
themselves?
think so, if it is done carefully. And I myself have been in the situation. I did youth ministry for several years, and we would do, as part of our youth nights, there'd be the testimony. And we had this rickety pink chair from the elementary school class. For some reason, you had to sit in this little tiny chair when you sat in front of the teens to give your testimony. And so I would go and do that. And I think that it can be done. And you should say that you have gone from a low point in life to a high point in Christ. I would just speak in generalities. So anyone listening, if you're talking to teenagers, you could say, there was a time where, instead of talking about sexual sin, you can say, I let people use me, and I thought it was okay to be used. If there's things related to drugs, say, I did things that I thought would make me happy, and they ended up wrecking my body, made me feel miserable. So I think what's helpful, not even saying sex, drugs, or these kinds of words, but talking about in general, doing things that you thought would be good, that were harmful, talking about those harms in a profound way, but in more of a general way of what's happened, and then moving to the good news. So I think, yes, I've seen this done, but it has to be done carefully in a practiced way, in a way, as Layla said, that does not glorify specific particular sins.
Or, by the way, offend against modesty.
Right.
I really want to applaud you, Trent, for your answer there, because that is the challenge that all these folks, and often to great effect, when they tell their conversion or reversion stories, they have to be very careful that it's not going to offend against modesty. So I like the way you put it. You speak in generalities. Err on the side of caution.
Yeah.
Because these are still minors.
Yeah.
I mean, it'd be one thing if you had a hardcore group of teens who were in drug rehab, for example, and then maybe you could go to them and say, look, you can actually come out of it to Christ and look what I've done. But this might not be that.
Yeah, you already have credibility with these teens in in a drug rehab center to establish credibility to say, I was a junkie like you, I did this, but I turned my life around, you can do the same thing. With teens, you can just say, I was a teen. I faced these tough choices. People asked me to do things I didn't think were right, but I didn't want to be left out. I did things I'm not proud of. But if I could go back, I would definitely not do that again.
Do it again.
And because I've seen testimonies where people were sexually explicit, for example, in their testimony, and I felt that was inappropriate.
Yes.
It could have planted
Yes.
not great thoughts in the minds of the teens that were listening.
Or, wow, that person had their fun and then found Jesus later. That's what I'm going to do.
Right.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, make the sin general, but make the salvation specific.
Clarissa, is that helpful?
Like that.
Did we lose you, Clarissa?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I muted it. Sorry.
All
Thank
right.
you so much.
Good.
That definitely answered my question.
All right, and I hope that Trent and Layla's book gives you some more insights. God bless you, dear. Let's go to Anthony in Kentucky. Anthony, welcome to Catholic Answers Live.
Thank you all, and God bless y'all for what you're doing for parents out here.
Well, it's Layla and Trent here.
Right
They're super. Yeah.
A lot of what I've already heard gave so much help, but we only have one son due to health issues, and he's in 4th grade now, and some of my friends have older children. I'm starting to hear war stories from, when we grew up they're just on the internet and everything, and sex is everywhere. And I've got a friend he's got a high schooler that's really struggling with pornography and then taking it into self-pleasure too. And I was just wondering if you all had any advice on, one, my boy's only in 4th grade yet, but he's quickly approaching teenage years, and any advice how to talk to him or materials to read up on helping with that, and
Anthony?
just to kind of safeguard him from that, but also educate him when the time comes.
Right. Anthony, this is my counsel to you. Take this very seriously.
Yes.
Take it very seriously. Not panic, but this is real.
And I'm so glad that this is a father calling in about his son. I mean, I can't even tell you. Again, a 4th grader is going to trust his dad. I mean, you are the example of a man to him. We do talk about for the younger kids, because I assume he'd still fall under the younger kids at that age. Not for long, but there's a book we actually recommend in the book, which is called Good Pictures, Bad Pictures, and it can help you talk to your son about what, without being explicit, without taking away his innocence, but talking about how to identify, what a bad picture is and what he needs to avoid and what he needs to come to you with if he is exposed to something. And you just need to be very frank with him that there are things that will make him very, very sad and that will really alter his future, and that he needs to really trust and listen to you on this. And we make it sound very dangerous to our kids, that this is nothing that we tell our kids, if you get addicted to this, if you get addicted to these bad pictures or pornography, can use that word when they know what it means or when they're older, it is like drugs. I mean, you might as well just be a drug addict at that point.
Monsignor Escriva uses the image that they're like tar on the brain. Just, you can't get them unstuck.
Mm-hmm. Right. Don't start, if you don't, again, that fear, like, I'm not against, using fear if it's an actually true consequence. You want to say, like, you don't touch a hot stove because you're going to burn yourself. You can use a little bit of that consequential fear, like something bad's going to happen. So don't even start, because it's much easier not to start something than to pull back once you've started.
There are some practical measures here. No screens in the bedroom.
No, absolutely.
I think even going further beyond that, the book by Kristen Jensen and Gail Pointer is very helpful. Good Pictures, Bad Pictures, Porn-Proofing Today's Young Kids. So I would recommend that as a final safeguard, that if your child stumbles across pornography, the book gives them the acronym CANDO, CANDO, of what to do. Close it, look away, go tell an adult, tell them, tell your parents what you saw, in case they are exposed to this. But you should do your best to minimize the exposure. And I would say
the book again, Trent.
It's called Good Pictures, Bad Pictures, Porn-Proofing Today's Young Kids by Kristen Jensen and Gail Pointer. Yeah. We covered a little bit in the pornography chapter in Made This Way. So that gives tips for what your child should do if they are exposed to this. But then you'll have to take steps to try to minimize the exposure as much as you can.
I would filter.
I would say number one, no private computers whatsoever. Absolutely if they have to do research for a 4th, 5th grade project, sit in the room with them using the computer in the living room. Honestly, I feel this way. No one under the age of 18 should have a smartphone with connection to the internet. Yeah. Absolutely.
No smartphones.
Doesn't matter the age. You can have a cellular phone, a flip phone that allow you to call mom if there's an emergency. But it should not be able to contact the internet. That is a little handy device to hell you fit in your pocket.
It's, as Matt Fradd says, a portable X-rated movie theater.
Yes. So I would say, limiting that, and then just having, these conversations, getting good pictures, bad pictures, reading it first, say, here's what these pictures are, this is what pornography is, it makes us sad, puts pictures in our minds we can't get rid of, it makes us hard to love other people. And I don't want that for you. I don't want you to have these bad pictures stuck in your mind. And then limiting the areas where they can be exposed and making sure that your child spends time with friends who share these values. But honestly, and this is something, different parents have different views about this, I think it's best if your child has other friends to minimize their exposure. Don't let them hang out with other friends at other places. Have all the kids come and hang out at your house. Right. That way you kind of maintain control there.
Right. Mm-hmm. But if the teenage boy, especially, I mean, I know that girls are susceptible to this to a degree, but typically we're talking about, even as early as 10 or whatever, but teenage boys, if they do fall, it's important to let them know that they're loved, that God loves them, that redemption is there in the sacrament of confession. Catholic Answers has an excellent resource that you can get at our shop site called You Are Loved. It was written by a priest named Father Phil Bochansky, and it was actually designed as a confessional aid that a priest could hand to a penitent, and priests hear this all the time, who's suffering from pornography addiction. And it's got a little theology in there, a little spiritual direction, some life hacks. And I think in the very back page, there's a free coupon for a month of Covenant Eyes, which is the accountability software.
I wanted to recommend that and one other resource that, number one, if you have for our listeners, if you have older children or teens who have computers of their own they need to use, install a filter, but sometimes filters, it's easy to get around them. Covenant Eyes software monitors your child's web history, or your spouse's web history, honestly, shows you what websites are visited, sends a report to you, so that they can be held accountable. Second, if you have a teen, like you mentioned, Chris, who is stuck in this, has been exposed to pornography, feels ashamed of this, would like to break free, there is a program called Reclaim.
Yes.
It's a Catholic program that uses brain retraining software and technology to teach anyone, minor or adult, who feels that they are compelled to look at pornography, how to retrain their brain to not be stimulated by that anymore, and that is called Reclaim. And a good book on the subject, my friend Matt Fradd wrote, The Porn Myth, another resource I highly recommend.
Yeah, great question, Anthony. We're going to go to break, my friends. If you want to get a copy of Layla and Trent's book and you don't get on the show today, visit shop.catholic.com. You can buy a case of 20 for $5 a copy if you only want one, but of course you want to give one to somebody else. So get 5 copies or more for $10 each, or a case for 20, or one for 20% off. Use the promo code CALive18 at shop.catholic.com.
We're glad you're with us. Stick around for more Catholic Answers Live.
St. Paul's street evangelization isn't like other evangelism you might have seen on the streets. We don't yell, and we don't force anyone to pay attention to us. Instead, St. Paul's street evangelization is committed to presenting a positive, passionately Catholic presence to a world hungry for truth. For more information, or to start a chapter of your own, go to www.streetevangelization.com. That's streetevangelization.com. It's time to do our part.
EWTN, communicating the faith.
Just turned 31. Feel that I'm being called to the priesthood, and I've been attending daily mass and just finding that falling more in love with Jesus every day, and finding more opportunities to make sacrifices for him myself, and just allow him to enter me more. How do we fully surrender to God and to his will so that we can more clearly hear his calling?
EWTN. Live truth. Live Catholic.
Catholic Answers Live. Chris Check sitting in for Cy Kellett. He will be back in this seat in 24 hours and 15 minutes. But I have 15 minutes left with my great guest. Trent, it's always a joy to be on the show. But Layla, I have to tell you what a real joy this has been to have you here for 2 hours.
This has been great. I've really enjoyed it.
And if you're watching on Facebook or YouTube, you see what a lovely lady Layla is there.
Well, you guys are very gracious here. I love Catholic Answers. This is awesome.
Yes. All right, lightning round.
Lightning round.
Hannah in Cleveland, Ohio, listening on the Rock Catholic Radio. Welcome to Catholic Answers Live.
Hello.
All right,
Hello.
let's get your question, Hannah.
Oh, I've never called into a place before. How wonderful this is. Well, thank you so much. My sisters announced that my 24-year-old niece is marrying her girlfriend. That's in 1 year. And all my sisters heartily congratulated her. Even my 2 sisters who attend daily mass and are in positions of influence in their parishes.
Sure.
And I told them I want to send my niece a loving letter, and like that natural law you were talking about, referring to that and a few other things. And then they hit me with, I cannot judge and condemn my niece, and it's not my responsibility to and I'm exerting my influence over her. God does not need my help.
Hannah, God is happy to have your help.
Yes.
How can we help Hannah?
Oh my goodness. Well, first of all, I would say that a lot of times when people use those excuses, oh, I don't want to judge and I'm not going to, can we call it by the name of cowardice? Honestly, it's because they do not want to be seen as the bad guy. And what you're doing is actually the loving thing.
The truth is always loving.
The truth is always loving. The truth may hurt sometimes, but it cannot harm you. You may be that one person. I always say there's always someone in an extended family that is kind of the plant, kind of just that one person that is God has left in a family to lovingly speak the truth when no one else wants to hear it. And you might be that person. So I don't know. It's a tough position, and this happens all the time. But your courage also could be contagious because there might, believe it or not, there might be other people in your family who, and I've encountered this where I've taken someone aside privately once, and I've said, I just saw that you congratulated, your niece for a gay marriage or something that just went on, but you're Catholic. And I remember that this woman, a dear woman, she said, You're right. I don't know why I did that. Like, she just needed one person to say, it's just, you need to not do that. And she since then has just had this renaissance of her faith, and she's just as loving and wonderful as she ever was, and she still has relationships with everyone. But sometimes people just go along with it because they don't know what else to do.
And that's so contrary to what Scripture tells us. In Proverbs 24:11, it says to rescue those who are being dragged to death, hold back those stumbling to slaughter, that we have a responsibility to our neighbor that if we do nothing, God will ask us, we say, well, it's between them and God. God will do something. God will say, yeah, what I did was I sent you to talk to them.
Right.
Why didn't you do anything? In fact, James 5:19-20 in the New Testament says, my brethren, if anyone among you wanders from the truth and someone brings him back, let him know that whoever brings back a sinner from the error of his way will save his soul from death and will cover a multitude of sins. So we have that responsibility. So if you were to write a letter like this, I would recommend weighing it, 80-90% affirmation where possible, and then clarification on what you believe and why you can't support this particular aspect of your niece's life, but you still support her as a person. So in affirmation, to reaffirm your relationship that, I'm your aunt, I've always loved and cared for you. I remember 1, 2, 3, these things when you were growing up, how much joy it brought me. I'm so proud of A, B, and C that you are doing now. And so when writing that in a letter, you're building goodwill. And I always want what's best for you, and I want, to be able to see you in heaven for eternity. But I know in my heart, and I know what God, has told us about how men and women should relate to one another, that this is not the way God wants us to use the gift of our sexuality. I know you disagree with me, but I feel in my heart of hearts, I have to just let you know that I can't choose and not follow what God has revealed about this. So I want, though, to love you, and I'm always open to talk to you about this, and I will, do my best to support you in what you're doing. So you could still even send, it doesn't mean you have to cut this person off.
Right.
Like, you can send Christmas presents, well wishes, even like for a wedding. One thing that you could do that is helpful is to send if they, move into a home together. You could send a gift, but not one to Mrs. and Mrs. So-and-so, but one to addressed individually to your niece and one addressed individually to this other woman. That way you are affirming the goodness of them as persons without affirming the idea of them being some kind of a couple that's a valid couple. So that might be one way to look at it.
And I'm sure Hannah that Made This Way is going to give you some good material to mine as you put that letter together. It almost sounds like Hannah has another conversation, though, that she needs to have with her I think with her sister, right? Who's who's an active member of her parish. And Hannah, something you can say is, okay, I'm having difficulty understanding how you're squaring this position that you're taking with your active participation in our parish.
Right, and one connection you can make either in the letter or when your friends are asking is to show you are not singling out one particular sin. Mm-hmm. So you can make the example like, look, I couldn't go in good conscience to a wedding of someone who's divorced because that's saying adultery is okay. I couldn't go to a polygamous wedding, for example. I wouldn't go to a wedding where if I have a Catholic friend who got married at the Justice of the Peace, I can't support people who are doing something that's harmful for them. So when you bring those examples in, it's not I have this irrational animus to those who identify as gay or lesbian. It's no, I believe in marriage and sexuality as God intended, and I just don't believe in any way you might deform that.
Hannah, God bless you. You will be in our prayers. Thank you so much for calling. Let's go to Michael in Omaha, Nebraska, listening on one of my favorite Catholic radio networks, Spirit Catholic Radio. Michael, I should tell you that the Catholic Answer speaking team is going to be out there next, I think, end of October, beginning of November, with a big joint conference with Spirit Catholic Radio. Welcome to Catholic Answers Live.
Thank you. My question is, how do you deal with family members? What's the right wording to use with your children, close family members that, maybe they don't necessarily believe in pretty important teachings of the Catholic faith. Maybe as an example, maybe we have a family member that doesn't really believe that there's a hell, and so how do you talk to your children about that? So you're not, because they love that person very much, and so you want them to continue to love that person, but also understand that that's not necessarily, that's not correct. That here's what it actually is, the teaching.
What would you tell Michael?
Well, I think Layla actually covers this a lot in the book. I'd like to hear her thoughts, because one of the hardest things is helping our own children understand that when we have loved ones who disagree with us, grandma, grandpa, aunts and uncles, especially those who've done things like get divorces or they might reject church teaching, that we love them as a person. That does not mean we agree with everything that they believe.
Mm-hmm.
So I think Layla could speak well to that.
Right. And again, it always goes back to that foundational that your child is going to trust you. So you're forming your child trusts you, you're a practicing Catholic, and you're serious about your faith. When you encounter loved ones that aren't serious about their faith or that don't know the faith, you just are very honest and you just say, you know what, we love grandma and grandpa. We love grandma and grandpa so much, but they don't understand the way that God wants us to be, or the way that God made us to be. And so we pray for them, and maybe they can learn to love God or know God and the way that that would make us happy, that they could act the way that God wants us to be for our ultimate happiness. But, you don't want to dwell on the fact that they're in sin or that this is just this terrible, terrible thing. It doesn't make them, someone that we can't love or someone that we don't love. We do love them, but that's and then you could even go into the whole early catechesis of the fall and why we are drawn to certain things that aren't good for us, and that's okay, but we're still called to love everyone, and they're very special to us. So we pray, and we always end with, let's pray for them.
Mm-hmm. Michael, thank you so much for that call. Nick in Maryland, if you can ask it really quick, we might get an answer in.
Yeah, it's really quick. So I was kind of wondering, I'm a young student in D.C., and I've had a lot of kids come up to me asking about suicide who are younger than me. I don't really know how to explain that.
How do we explain
suicide?
Okay, how do we explain suicide to young kids?
Suicide is a permanent decision to solve a temporary problem. And that's just one way to put that, and to say everyone's life is valuable. And sometimes we think life overwhelms us, but life is valuable. And then if you can go further than that, it's valuable because God gave us our lives, and we respect him by using our lives to glorify him, not to do something to hurt ourselves, and that could provide a bad example to others and encourage them to engage in similarly destructive behavior.
Mm-hmm.
Layla?
Yeah, so that's not, and it's not something we touched on in the book. That's a difficult topic. With the
for the part two, for volume two.
That might be volume two. A few more topics, yes.
Yeah. Layla Miller, Trent Horn, this has been a really delightful 2 hours. Co-authors of Made This Way. Kristen and John, you didn't get on the show, but make sure you give your address to Marie and we'll send you a copy. And those of you who did not get on the show at all, go to shop.catholic.com. You can buy one copy for 20% off. Enter the promo code CALive18. Buy 5 copies or more. Cost goes down to $10 a copy. But what we really want you to do is buy a case of 20 like Mary and carry them around in your trunk and give them to every mom and teacher that you see. Layla, enjoy the rest of your time here in San Diego.
Thank you so much.
We look forward to having you back here.
Thank you, Chris.
All right, God bless you both.
Thank you.